Have you ever wondered what exactly a ditch is? I guarantee you, you're not the only one. And I know that because I've been getting lots of questions lately on what is a ditch. I hear fishermen talking about it. Everyone's saying that's where they're catching them right now, particularly in highland reservoirs in the southeast. What is a ditch? In this video, I hope this is the last ditch video that you ever have to watch, because I'm gonna do my best to explain exactly what a ditch is. If you throw it down the middle of the ditches, you're gonna catch fish. It's being blown up. See how this has kind of got a hole in it? Look below here. As we can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fish right beneath that bait. Not a bad one to start off with right there. If you guys stick around to the end of the video, I'm gonna share 2 tips that are often overlooked. They are probably the best way to identify really good ditches, and then also what to throw in those ditches. That's kind of a hint there. So watch to the end of the video to get those 2 tips. I'm gonna first take you into the woods. The woods, you say? Yeah, that's exactly where our first tip is gonna be. So let's go. In the woods here, we have an actual ditch. And what this ditch is it's actually just like an old creek bed or runoff area that's been carved out over time. So I'm in the ditch now. And as you guys can see, I mean, this is like a huge wall. The bigger the walls on the ditch, the better the ditch is gonna be and the more the fish are gonna move up and down it. So that's exactly what you guys are looking for on the water. And you guys can see there's a bunch of stumps and rocks and runoff in here, and frankly, just a bunch of garbage. And that's the same as that on the bottom of the lake. You're gonna get hung up fishing the bottom of these ditches, but if you find the right ditches, they'll just funnel all the bait and fish, and you'll be able to catch a bunch of fish out of those ditches. So now that you guys have seen it from a land or in the woods perspective, it's just something a little different. Like I said, it was taught to me, and just visually it like connected the dots from something that I could see that wasn't under the water. It's the same thing under the water. This is just on land and it's not filled with water. So let's go take a look now and look out on the lake at what a ditch looks like on our sonar, on our mapping, and what we're exactly looking for in terms of bait and fish. Now that I've shared with y'all my little trick on how I was taught to visually understand what a ditch is by looking at it outside of the water and in the woods where we just came from, now let's go ahead and look at another tool off of the water, outside of the water, that can help build that confidence and that mental confidence with what a ditch is. So here I am on my computer, and this is Navionics chart viewer. If you have access to a computer, guys, this is a free resource that I highly recommend that you utilize wherever you're fishing. It does not matter. They have most of the lakes, even some small ponds, and it just helps to show underwater points, humps, roadbeds, rivers, creeks, and most importantly for what we're talking about today are ditches. So here I am on Navionics, and this is also how I started understanding what a ditch is. What we're going to be doing here on the computer is looking for ditches, and again, connecting with what we saw in the woods to what we're gonna go see on the water, just to start to build that confidence. So you guys know that you're fishing ditches. Even if you're not catching fish, you're on the right track and you're fishing the right type of stuff. So here I am on Navionics. This is Lake Lanier, no secret there, and Lanier has thousands of ditches. I mean, it is one of the, I would say, easiest lakes in order to find ditches, but one of the hardest lakes in order to catch fish out of, if that makes sense. So just for teaching purposes, again, I'm just showing you how to find ditches, and let's look at the middle of our screen here. Right off the bat, I can already see a number of ditches. And remember, from the woods, a ditch is just that V that's cut out by an old creek channel or next to a roadbed. And as you guys can see here, or even an old river, this is a ditch right here. Let's move around a little bit. This is a ditch that comes up there. Right off of here, we have a ditch that runs all the way back here. And for me, what I'm looking for, again, this is everywhere on the lake. You can zoom in pretty much just about anywhere and find ditches. So here's a ditch right here that runs up there. A ditch doesn't have to be any particular shape. It doesn't have it to be any particular length to be good. You really just have to get out on the water and graph around to look for bait, which we'll get into here in a bit, and fish. But ultimately, just take a look around. Go on Navionics, guys. Like I said, it's really straightforward. It's not easy to fish, I'll give you that, but it's really easy to find ditches. So here's one that comes in, and any of these cuts are ditches. And here's one with a road bed across it. That looks like a really good spot to try. I would do that. But what you're looking for in these ditches is any irregularities. And what I mean by that is, let's go back to where we started, are anywhere where the creek channel bends or the ditch bends, where there's more of a bluff wall, and that's indicated by more of a steeper bank. And that is shown on Navionics by the contour lines, is what they call them, being closer together. So as you guys can see here, these are more spaced out. That's going to be more of a gradual decline, where here it's more black. I mean, it's pretty much black because the lines are so close together, and that just signifies that it's a hard edge, it's a hard wall, like I showed you guys in the woods. It's a steep wall. So that's what you're looking for. This is a little deep, but like I said, these back here, here's a bluff wall. It's probably rock, if I'm being honest. Like I said, anytime these hard contour lines are pushed up against the shore like that, it's probably rock, and that's pretty good indication that you should probably try fishing there. But any of these are ditches. Like I said, it's really not difficult. Hopefully you guys can see this very clearly. When you hear fishermen or just about anybody say that they caught them in a ditch, that's what this means. It means that there's two sides and there's a cut down the middle where bait and fish will move throughout the day. Normally, now it's not always the case, but normally bait and fish will move up these ditches shallower in the mornings, and then they'll move back on out during the day. And again, focus on anywhere that the creek bends or comes together out here, up against a bluff wall. Anything like that are stop signs for fish and bait to sit and before they continue to move further out in the ditch. So just to be perfectly clear, again, and drive this point home on the contour maps, for these two ditches right here that we're looking at, let's look at this one right here and this one right here. I would immediately, let's start on this one, I would fish right here. There looks like a little pinch point right there. That's probably where I'd fish. I'd fish right along here where this creek bends into this. Looks like there's some steeper contour. It's probably hard bottom. And then I'd also look right around in here where this point, it intersects two ditches. So we have this ditch right here and this ditch right here. Now for this one, I would fish probably right here. It's where these two ditches meet. I would fish this wall right here, and then I would move out here, and this is kind of deep. It looks like a deep hole. Fish can be out here. Look off the end of this point. Take a look out here. You might find bait. And then over in here, I'd fish right there because that point creates a pinch point. So that's what I'm looking for specifically. And don't get scared, guys, when people talk about ditches or you don't know how to fish ditches. This is exactly what that means. It's super easy to see. Hopefully it's easy for you guys now that you understand. Like I said, you go to any part of this lake and find ditches. So do your homework outside of the water and go look on, these maps online. I think Humminbird has one, Lowrance has one, but there's tons of different free resources out there available to you guys where you can go make a list of ditches that you think look interesting, that hold fish, and apply that and take it to the water. So hopefully that was crystal clear and that you guys can see exactly what a ditch is. So now let's go ahead and take a trip to the water where I'm gonna show you what I'm looking for with the big motor, first graphing around before I even put the trolling motor in the water. All right, everybody, so now that we have identified what a ditch looks like on a map, where they're gonna be, now what we're gonna do when we get out on the water is go ahead and start graphing these ditches. And as you guys can see here, I have on my screen, this is kind of how I have my screen set up. On the left, we have a map, and you can kind of see the outline right here of a ditch. You can kind of see how it funnels and it goes to the left over here. We then also have traditional sonar. I have down scan, and then on the bottom I have side scan. And I'll explain kind of why I use each of these. One, obviously my mapping for just where I'm going and kind of following the contour of the ditch. That looks like crappie or something right there. Downscan and traditional 2D sonar I use together to go ahead and just cross-reference what I'm seeing on the bottom. They both play their role. You can see on 2D kind of the timber and what comes up there, and then on downscan it confirms what I'm seeing. And what I'm looking for in these ditches is just bait. If I see bait, then I'm going to probably want to stop and at least investigate and start fishing, because there could be fish in the area. Now, I finally use side scan because sometimes the bait's on the side of us, and you can see right there, we just passed a huge cloud of bait. And what I do normally is I go ahead and hit a waypoint at that moment in time, and I'll just do, you know, something that lets me know that there's bait in that area. So I can go back through it, and once I've marked a couple piles of bait, I can see that that's where they're holding and start to fish. So that's what I'm looking for in a ditch. You guys can see here, this ditch is really well defined. It pinches right there. That's what I'm looking for. That's a textbook definition of a ditch. And that's what I'm looking at on my sonar. And again, what I'm particularly looking for is balls of bait. That's what I'm looking for to stop and fish. Another thing to mention as well, when you are looking for bait on your electronics, sometimes you'll see a lot of bait, and that you want to stop and investigate. That can either be an indicator that there are fish in the area, or that means that there's really nothing, there's too much bait. It's gonna be tough to catch fish anyway. But one thing you're looking for when you look for bait is holes. There'll actually be holes blown out in the balls of bait. And what that means is there's predator fish swimming through that bait. So that's the biggest thing to look for when looking for bait. If you see bait that's all, you know, doesn't look like a perfect ball or a perfect school of bait, and it's kind of strewn all over the place and it's got holes and pockets and stuff like that, you want to stop and fish there, because predator fish have been moving through that and busting the bait up. So check this out. This is exactly what I want to see, guys. So we have balls of bait, which are right here, and then below it, those are all game fish. And we can confirm that over here on our down scan. Remember what I told you guys about the bait being blown up? See how this has kind of got a hole in it? Look below here. As we can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fish right beneath that bait. So there's some bait balls right there. It's kind of broken up, and there's some predator fish below that. So what I want to do is go back here. I'm going to drop a waypoint, and then I know that there's bait in that area. And now we're going to go step up to the front of the boat and use some forward-facing sonar just to look around, or some down scan. If you guys don't have forward-facing, that's not a problem at all. Turn around and drop your trolling motor and just start to fish. Here's some more bait out here, guys. So I've kind of found everything that I'm looking for here. Let's go ahead to the front of the boat and drop the trolling motor. So now now that we're at the front of the boat on the trolling motor, we're going to utilize our electronics to confirm what we've seen back there. We saw the bait. We're really looking for fish at this point. Again, if you don't have forward-facing sonar, no big deal at all. Pay attention to your down scan if you have it, and honestly, just start fishing. If there's bait in the area, we already graphed it with that. There's most likely fish in the area, so go ahead and grab one of your ditch fishing baits and drop her down and see if you can't catch one. If you guys don't know what baits to throw, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to release the next video after this one. I'm going to give you guys my top 5 ditch fishing baits, so you're not going to want to miss that. Like I said, so subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss that video, and I'm going to share exactly what baits you guys need to be throwing in order to catch fish out here in the ditches. All right, guys, so already I'm seeing fish. I'm seeing fish on forward facing. There's a school of them down there right now. There's bait, and there's fish creeping along the bottom. So like I said, use those steps to find ditches, and just like that, you can put it all together and find ditches with fish. And then see how it's broken up like I was talking about? How there's like holes in it? There's probably, look at that, there's a fish right there. Swimming right above it. So there's definitely fish in this area. Let me see if I can catch one for y'all real quick. Not a bad one to start off with right there. It's a big one. There's a good one right there. On the swim bait. I'm telling you guys, they eat it. These fish are in the ditches, and if you throw it down the middle of the ditches, you're gonna catch fish. All right, guys, hopefully that was super clear. We walked from the woods to the computer to graphing behind the big motor and what you're looking for on your electronics, to going all the way up to the front of the boat, dropping the trolling motor, and successfully catching a fish out of a ditch. Again, my goal for that was, hopefully that was the last ditch fishing video that you ever had to watch. Now you can understand both visually and from the water perspective, just understand what a ditch is. I get asked about it so many times. You're not alone. Like I said, if you don't know what it is or still have not mastered that technique, go ahead and let me know. Let me know if this video helped you out. Before we close this down, I promised you guys 2 tips to help you guys find really good ditches and be successful. So with all of that said, that I already talked about, there's 2 things that you can look for on the water that will help you dial in that bite on any given day. Number one are birds, particularly loons. Blue heron, everyone knows the blue heron up shallow on points and all that stuff. That's fine. They catch fish up there. There's probably fish up there, whatever, but we're talking about ditches today. And the birds that are in the ditches catching bait are loons. So if you guys see a group of loons in a ditch and they're diving and they're moving around and they're busting bait out of the water, those are the ditches that you want to be in. Sounds like common sense, but again, it's an often overlooked thing. I take people fishing out here often and they would just never ever think to look for loons in a ditch. You can look for them when you're, going 60 miles an hour down the lake. You can catch them in the corner of your eye and say, oh my goodness, there's a bunch of loons in that ditch. Let's at least go graph it. And then you can go back to that, third step of what I showed you guys. Graph round. If you see something, great. If you don't, no big deal. Keep moving on. But that's a tip number one that's often overlooked. Look for loons. They're around bait oftentimes, and normally there's some big fish around as well. Number two is pay attention to what the fish are spitting up. Oftentimes, again, when I take people out, they see fish spit up, herring, shad, crawfish are kind of the big three. Sometimes bluegill, but that's not too common. Pay attention to what they're spitting up. Pay attention to the colors, the size, and the type of bait. Again, this is one of those things that people think it's really cool when they spit up the bait, but then they go right back to throwing what they were throwing, even if it's the wrong size or the wrong type of bait that they're eating. So pay attention to those, because sometimes that can take you from catching just a handful of fish to having the best fishing day of your life. And I'm not even kidding. These fish out here change quite often, and just focusing in on what those fish spit up can be super important to what you are throwing. Now, with all of that said, hopefully that helped you guys out. Hopefully it helped you guys understand exactly what a ditch is. Hopefully now you can go take that to the water and just feel more confident in what you're doing. Even if you don't catch a fish the first time you're doing it, keep trying it. That's how you're gonna get better at it. And now you have all of the tools to find a ditch that's holding bait and ultimately fish. If you guys enjoyed this video, please like it. That really helps me out a lot. Subscribe to the channel. You're not gonna wanna miss what's coming down the line. I have this, actually, the next video that drops is going to be my top 5 ditch fishing baits. I already mentioned it earlier in this video, but you're not gonna wanna miss that. So subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell. If you guys have any questions or any more questions, post them down in the comments below, and I will talk to y'all soon.